coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host today. We're taking calls on what should be done about not only the border, but about impeachment. Should we impeach Obama? He is declaring now that he's going to do some executive orders before the midterm elections. They think that's going to help them. As several callers have pointed out, if we have a GOP that doesn't have the backbone to do anything after scandal after scandal after scandal, then maybe we're going to have the GOP voters who aren't energized. Maybe they're not going to be energized if the GOP sets back and does nothing, no matter how outrageous, no matter how unconstitutional, no matter how tyrannical, dictatorial his actions are. And the question is, when we look at the border, what are we going to do about it? We just had a report from Joe Biggs, who's now down at the Arizona border. And, of course, the border all across the southern border is wide open and has been for a very long time. There's probably more fences up now than we've ever had before. We have the federal government going down and building fences, metal fences, spending $3 million per mile. And then they go back and they put a gate in it and lift it up about 5 feet so people can just walk right through. Of course, they put 3 strands of barbed wire across it. That's not any obstacle for anyone. That's what we have now. And we have massive immigration that we've never had before, even when we had fewer fences. This is a manufactured crisis that's going on now. This is not something that just happened by accident. There's both a pull in terms of our policies that have been put in place by Obama, again, by executive order. Our immigration policies, our DREAM Act, all these different things have been put in saying that we're going to give an expanded entitlement state to anyone who comes in under the age of 31. They'll be able to get all kinds of benefits in terms of educational benefits that even our citizens don't enjoy. We can't go to any state and get in-state tuition. And many of them, of course, are going to get free ride tuitions. That's just part of it. Of course, they're also going to be paid for in our taxes that we have for our local school taxes. This will implode the country. So what do we do about it? Why is this happening now? Well, it's because of our welfare policies, but it's also there really is violence in those countries. There really is economic hardship in those countries. And that is being driven, the violence and much of the economic hardship is being driven by American policies, by IMF policies, by banker policies, by our war on drugs and our prohibition policies that are down there. Now, they do have out-of-control violence there because of the drug cartels and the gangs. That is now moving north into our country. And if you look at the number of people that have been killed in Mexico, it's an absolute slaughter. Far more have been killed in the war on drugs in Mexico than in the Afghanistan war. Do we want to bring that violence into America? Well, Obama is saying essentially yes. So how do we respond to this? Do we militarize the border? Do we militarize the police? Do we make the same mistakes that we've made in light of 9/11 and the war on drugs? I don't think so. We need to step back and look at the policies that are causing the economic hardship there as well as here. The policies that are causing violence there as well as here. We need to stop those policies rather than double down and do another 9/11. Do another Patriot Act. That's what I'm concerned about seeing happen. I don't want to see the border militarized. I don't want to see us put into a giant FEMA camp that stretches around the entire perimeter of the southern border. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see the policies addressed. I want to see drug wars, drug prohibition, SWAT teams, the militarization of the police. I want to see that brought down. I want to see some of the entitlement programs that we can no longer afford. We have a $17 trillion debt. How are we going to pay for all of these new dependents? Well, of course, that's just one aspect of it. Just before the break, we were getting ready to talk to Margaret in North Dakota. I think, Margaret, you were on hold, but couldn't hear us. Are you there now?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Hi, David. As far as impeachment, first of all, I don't think we'd have enough time right now anyway before the election. I think we have to stop letting the powers that be control.
Well, hang on, because we're out of time, not just before the election, but before this break. I'll hold you through the break, and we'll be right back taking your calls on whether or not we should impeach Obama, and if so, for
City
what.
of Austin tap water versus filtered City of Austin tap water.
I can taste dirt in it.
God knows what's in this.
These people just sampled City of Austin tap water straight from the faucet. Next, we had them try a sample of tap water filtered with the Pro Pure G2.0 filtration system.
That one is better.
Tastes like nothing.
Yep, I know what good water tastes like. It's good water.
Most tap water contains added substances like fluoride, chlorine, glyphosate, and many others. Studies prove that these substances are linked to an assortment of major health issues, including tooth decay, lowered IQ, and even cancer.
It tastes like you're drinking out of the lake when you're drinking tap water.
The Pro Pure G2.0 filtration system removes these deadly substances, leaving only fresh-tasting, deliciously clean water.
Okay, this is very tasty.
It's good water.
Refreshing.
It's good.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com today. Use promo code WATER and save 10% off your Pro Pure purchase. Or call 1-888-253-3139.
Fitting that a free screen should sound the alarm against those who would destroy freedom. For in its power to deceive and inflame, or enlighten and inspire, the motion picture has no equal.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight on this Sunday, July 27th, 2014. We've been talking about whether or not Obama should be impeached. We've been talking about what should happen at the borders. Should we build more fences? Should we build different kinds of fences? Should we make them higher, deeper? Should we spend billions and billions of dollars essentially creating a massive jail for ourselves? Or should we create a police state, as we've made that mistake with the war on drugs? Should we destroy civil liberties even more than we have in the wake of 9/11? Should we militarize the police even more than we have in the wake of 9/11? Should we send the military down there? Along these lines, let's take a look at what just happened. Take a step back for a moment and take a look at what happened with the Second Amendment this weekend. We just had a federal court case in D.C. This is Palmer versus D.C. This is a case that's been winding through the courts for 5 years. And finally, the judge there has ruled in favor of the person who is suing to have his right to carry. This is an action. The lead attorney is Alan Gura of the Second Amendment Foundation. Congratulations to them. Thanks for fighting for that. And this is what the court decision said from Judge Frederick Scullin. He said, "There's no longer any basis on which this court can conclude that the District of Columbia's total ban on the public carrying of ready-to-use handguns outside of the home is constitutional under any level of scrutiny. Therefore, the court finds that the District of Columbia's complete ban on the carrying of handguns in the public is unconstitutional." That was a 19-page ruling, just came out. And, of course, that follows on the heels of the Supreme Court slapping down the District of Columbia back in 2008, Heller versus D.C. In that particular case, that was a fellow who was a police officer or security guard of some sort, Heller. He was not allowed to have a weapon when he was off duty even. They would not even allow a police officer who worked for the city to have a weapon off duty. So they were struck down. That law was struck down by the Supreme Court saying, no, he can have a gun. So they immediately said, all right, you can have a gun, but you have to keep it locked up in your home. You can't take it anywhere. Well, that's infringement. That's what is meant by the Second Amendment, saying that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If you infringe it with all these different qualifications, you don't allow people to actually carry the gun so they can actually have it with them if they need to defend themselves. That's exactly what the Second Amendment was there to stop, was government doing that. Yet we still see, in this other article up on Infowars.com, Boston police say residents do not need to own shotguns and rifles. This is the head of the Boston Police Commissioner William Evans. He says, nobody in the city needs a shotgun. Nobody needs a rifle. Well, I guess maybe that includes the police. I don't know. We know better than that. We know that you do need to have weapons to defend yourself. And of course, they will try to infringe on that right any way that they can. But I want to think about this. I want you to think about this case of 2 shootings, essentially in the same area, both of them up in Pennsylvania, both of them involving psychiatric patients going into a psychiatric ward or hospital and involved in a shooting. They're 2 years apart. Now, 2 years ago, this was a gunman in the Western Psychiatric Institute, and he went into this Pennsylvania place, and he fired several shots using 2 semi-automatic guns. He killed one man who was 25 years old, injured 7 others before police eventually arrived and shot him and killed him. Now, in the case that just happened in Pennsylvania, this is reported by ABC News, they say inside the furious close-range gun battle at a Pennsylvania hospital. In this particular case, you have another patient who comes in, pulls out a gun out of his waistband, and shoots a caseworker in the head. Without warning, she's killed. But then what happens is the doctor that he really wanted to kill, that he had come to shoot, that was a Dr. Silverman, he, according to this article, dove to the floor, pulled out a semi-automatic pistol out of his pocket, and had a furious close-range gun battle with this shooter, who police said fired at least 10 rounds. The doctor, who was using a chair for protection, aimed his gun at the shooter and fired until it was empty. The doctor was grazed in the head, wounded in the thumb while covering his face, but he was able to get out of the office unaware that he had struck Plotz, that is the shooter, 3 times. And then what happened was someone else bravely climbed through the window and wrestled him to the ground. But he shot him 3 times. He was still trying to reload, but at that point, I think he had been taken down a bit. But that's the situation as it stands. Now, of course, there have been reports that there's going to be disciplinary action possibly taken against this doctor who defended himself and defended others by shooting this guy who came in and shot the caseworker in the head immediately. The difference is, as we've seen over and over again, as the police chief in Detroit has pointed out over and over again, when something like this happens, you're on your own for a while. The police can't be everywhere. It takes them a while to get there. And so you see in the first case, 7 people were shot. In this case, 1 person was shot besides the shooter. That's the difference in having concealed carry. That's a practical argument for it. Of course, there are many other arguments for what the Second Amendment is really about. It's really about a deterrent on a tyrannical government. But we have other deterrents, and one of those is impeachment. And we were just talking to Margaret in North Dakota. You were weighing in, Margaret, as to whether or not you think that Obama should be impeached or not. And if so, what do you think he should be impeached for? Go ahead.
Well, for right now, I think we should hold off on that because we wouldn't be able to do it in time prior to the election anyway. And it looks like the Republicans are going to take the Senate and keep the House. You also have a situation where in the primaries you have more libertarian candidates coming in. And all you need is maybe a handful more control of the Republicans along with the citizens they know are more libertarian. And we have to control the conversation.
I think that, I don't know how long it takes to go through the impeachment thing. It doesn't necessarily have to take longer than the election. But I agree with the earlier callers that if we don't energize the opposition base, I don't know that the Republicans are going to have that much of a majority anyway. And even if they do win, what difference does it make if they won't stand for principle? Thank you, Margaret. Let's go to Chris in Indiana. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, David.
Hey, what's on your mind? What do you think we should do about impeachment?
First on the impeachment thing, I don't think it would do any good at all, even if Obama was impeached and kicked out of office. Vote, because if you're impeached, it doesn't matter. I mean, Clinton was impeached and the Senate was on his side, so he was just thrown out. Even if Obama was thrown out by the Senate, he'd have Joe Biden as president. I mean, what would that do? It would be worse.
Well, you know what? I think that it actually did make a difference. I think it moved government back somewhat when Nixon was impeached. I think that When Clinton got away with it, I think that kind of emboldened the lawlessness. And you could argue, I think maybe the best argument for not impeaching Obama is that if he gets away with it, he's going to be even bolder. But what do we do to stop him?